this. It's because the camera. Hi everyone, thanks for coming. Please do bear with us, we'll start shortly. We're just waiting for a little bit of technical support. Well, we're all together here. Why don't we just introduce ourselves? I'm Melanie Ashton from the Global Project, the CCKM project. This is my colleague Ludovic, and go ahead and introduce.
Good afternoon. I'm Ludovic Bernoda. I work in UNEP and I'm the program manager for the Islands program.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Anil Sukhdeo. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, but also work at the GEF Secretariat where I lead the Chemicals and Waste team.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Rachel Ramsey, from the project coordinator from the very awesome Basel Convention Regional Center for the Caribbean.
Hi, colleagues. My name is Siiri Mäkelä. I also work for the UN Environment Program. I'm working with youth and education projects. Nice to meet you all.
Hello, I'm Jovita Tamoshi-Titia, working with Melanie and Clara on islands and supporting knowledge management. Welcome.
Bonjour, moi je suis Tavares Celestino, je suis autorité nationale désignée de Convention de Rotterdam par le pesticide.
Good morning, my name is Agdet Burgu. I'm the National Director of Environment from Cape Verde.
Good afternoon. My name is Jorge Alvarez. I am from Cuba. I am the head of Regulatory Environmental Office.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ulises Fernandez. I work in the Ministry of Environment in Cuba. I'm the Director of International Affairs at the Ministry. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Odalis Goicochea from Cuba, Director of Environment in the Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment. Thank you for the invitation.
Good afternoon. My name is Wilson Tejeda from Dominican Republic.
Good afternoon. My name is Loriana Celeste Flores from the St. Lucia Solid Waste Management Authority, Deputy General Manager. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anita Montut. I'm Permanent Secretary in the Department of Sustainable Development. I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kimo Gardner, Waste Management Specialist at the Ministry of Planning and Development in Trinidad and Tobago.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anthony Mai from Belize. I'm the Chief Environmental Officer within the Department of Environment. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Odessa Duncan. I work at the Environmental Protection Agency in Guyana, heading Industry and Waste Management Department. The EPA is also the focal point and the competent authority for the Basel Convention. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rajini Ramsukul from the National Environment Agency of Suriname.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shamim from Suriname, the Pesticide Division from the Ministry of Agriculture.
Good afternoon. My name is Meredith Kummerbech, and I'm Policy and Legal Advisor at the Ministry of Spatial Planning and Environment in Suriname.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leo Sosa, Environmental Officer and Head of the Projects Execution Unit, Department of Environment, Belize.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Leal Beatrice, biochemist, microbiologist from Department of Analytical Services in Antigua and Barbuda.
Sorry, good afternoon. Lenore Christian, focal point, the government of Antigua and Barbuda.
Hi, everyone. Jonah Orman, Registrar of Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals, Antigua and Barbuda.
Good afternoon. I'm Thomas Verber from the UNEP, and I'm supporting Ludovic on the program.
Good afternoon. My name is Luisa Quaresma from Sao Tome e Principe, national focal point of the Basel and the Stockholm Convention.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joaquim Amaro. I'm a technician of environment, Sao Tome e Principe.
Afternoon, everybody. Joshua from the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program. Our team is responsible for the execution of the GEF Islands Pacific Child Project. Lovely to meet you all.
Bonjour, moi je suis Laurentino Cunha, de la Guinée-Bissau, directeur du Centre de déchets et produits chimiques du ministère de l'Environnement.
Good afternoon, Tamara Morrison from Pesticides Control Authority, Ministry of Health and Wellness, Jamaica.
All right. So good afternoon again, colleagues, and thank you for joining us both online and in person. I think it's really at least my pleasure as a fellow Islander to be here with all of you, at least from two of the regions, the Atlantic and the Caribbean SIDS. We have the Pacific and the Indian Ocean colleagues online as well. It's been not too much of a long process, but we're a little bit delayed over the last 2 years. I'm really happy that we got all the projects ready and submitted. We just have, I think, 1 month left for the submission of the Atlantic portion of this, and then we'll be complete. So it's really, really good to be here. I hope you enjoyed the launch on Tuesday. Unfortunately, I had to step out for another contact group, but I heard it went well. My job is very simple, just to welcome you and thank you for your intense collaboration and cooperation over the last couple of years in developing this, for us at the GEF, a very important and impactful program. We hope that through its implementation, we can see real progress on eliminating harmful chemicals and waste from your territories, as well as helping you incubate and accelerate new businesses that will help your economies as well grow and strive, grow to help with looking at reduction of these chemicals, but also working collaboratively across the globe where you can learn from each other and help each other through South-South cooperation. We also I'm already starting to think through what might be the next phase of this program. So as we start implementing this one, we want to start looking at, what we may have missed in the development of this program, and which sectors we can also be a little bit more intense and go deeper as we move into the next phase of GEF, which starts in 2 weeks. So I will now stop and hand over to Ludovic, who will moderate the session for the rest of the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil, and good afternoon again, everyone. Welcome to the meeting. It's an important meeting for us today. It's a working meeting with just the countries participating in the program. It's important that we share experience, expectations, and we come out of this meeting with a better knowledge of how islands will be implemented over the next 5 years. The program, as Anil mentioned, was developed was actually written into the GEF Chemicals and Waste Strategy for GEF 7. We've been talking to a lot of you since 2018 on developing the different projects. The program, as we will see very soon, has 7 child projects. So you all belong to at least one of these projects. Some countries in the Caribbean have 2 projects. There's one with the Inter-American Development Bank that comes with support for the private sector. As we have developed islands together with UNDP, FAO, and IDB, the program itself is structured around 4 components we will see very soon. But it's important to keep in mind that we are here to address also your priorities vis-à-vis the conventions, the Stockholm Convention on POPs, the Minamata Convention on Mercury, and the SICAM, Strategic Approach to International Chemicals Management. The program will address all these issues. We'll have demonstration in the countries. Not all the countries will have all the demonstrations, but the important part is to use the communication components of each project and feedback on the experience through the CCKM project, the global project that is there to manage knowledge, manage communication, and basically be the cement between the 33 countries participating in the program. All the projects of the program are active and have been approved. The last one is the project in the Atlantic region. We only submitted this amendment last year in June, so we are in a final stage, and we've had a very constructive meeting on Monday with the 3 countries participating on the program. We are in the final stage of development. So in a few months, all the projects will be active, and we expect that we will have a lot of these collaborative meetings at the global level every time we have a COP, every time we meet as a group, but also as a regional level. It's important that also every occasion we have in the regions the country meet and exchange experience. So thank you. I will stop here and hand over the floor to Melanie, I think, for the first part. Yeah.
Thanks, Ludo, and thanks for the great introduction to the program. It's really wonderful to see many of you here in person. As Ludo mentioned, we have been working on developing the program since 2018, so it feels like a great opportunity after COVID to be really seeing you here today face to face. As Ludo mentioned, I coordinate the CCKM project, or we call it the Global Project. It's the Coordination, Communication and Knowledge Management Project. The cement, if you like. I think we can find a nicer word, but the idea is that it brings the learning and the knowledge of the Islands program together. Next slide, please. So the objectives of Islands are to prevent the future buildup of chemicals entering SIDS, to safely manage and dispose of existing hazardous chemicals, products and materials, and to manage products entering SIDS throughout their life cycle, and then to facilitate SIDS learning and sharing of knowledge through the CCKM project. Next slide, please. This slide shows the SIDS we have in the program so far. The Pacific is in pink, the Caribbean is in green here, and the Indian Ocean in orange. And soon we'll be adding the Atlantic SIDS to the program also. Next slide, please. So the Global Coordination, Communication and Knowledge Management Projects connects these regional projects and aims to facilitate learning across SIDS. Next slide, please. We're hoping, by taking a programmatic approach to Islands, we're hoping to ensure that there's a coherent approach to communications, stakeholder engagement, gender transformation, and project reporting. And through this programmatic approach, we're looking for amplified impact. That is, the Islands program becomes more than the sum of its constituent parts. Next slide, please. So at CCKM, we have a team that includes Clara, who's operating the presentation here. Clara works on community engagement. I'm the project coordinator and private sector engagement specialist, and Jovita is working on knowledge management. She's sitting there, but is currently invisible. So we've been working hard over the last 6 months to develop programmatic resources. These include the Stakeholder Engagement Handbook. Could we go back, please? Thank you. Stakeholder Engagement Handbook, the Gender Action Plan, and the Islands Brand Kit and Visibility Guidelines. All of these are available online, and I'll give you a moment if you like. The QR codes are there and we'll take you directly to them. We were tempted to print, but this is paper free, so we have QR code instead. You can download these. And we're conducting training with each of the regions on stakeholder engagement and the Gender Action Plan. Many of you participated in the stakeholder engagement and gender action plan training for the Caribbean, and will soon be beginning that training in the Pacific region, and later this year in the Indian Ocean region. The Islands Brand Kit and Visibility Guidelines includes the Islands branding and explains how to use it. In the next few months, we'll be developing a communication strategy and training around the Islands Brand Kit and Visibility Guidelines. And all of this is to ensure that Islands is not 7 discrete projects, but that Islands is a program, and across the world we execute our activities as a program. This will help us have a greater impact and greater visibility. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we've done the training in the Caribbean, and we're scheduling the Pacific for July and the Indian Ocean later this year. If there are Caribbean colleagues that have missed the trainings and would like to join, you can be in contact with Jewel at the BCRC, and we can arrange for you to join one of the other regional trainings. Next slide, please. So in terms of communication, the project is the Coordination, Communication and Knowledge Management Project. We have a Global Communications Officer beginning in July, and his name is John Britton. He'll be joining us from Geneva, and he'll be developing the island's communication strategy in consultation with each of the regions, and then we're aiming for training on communications for September. Next slide, please. Islands has some technical responsibilities as well, the CCCAM project that is, and one of those responsibilities is to develop best practice recycling case studies. So basically Islands includes a lot of work on e-waste recycling, end-of-life vehicle management and used oil management. So we at CCCAM have recruited consultants to be in communication with you and seek out good practices in these areas. We'd very much like to understand what is happening. We know from the project documents that there's a lot missing and there's a lot of work to do around e-waste recycling, end-of-life vehicle management and used oil management. But we also know there are some people in private sector, small and medium-sized enterprises already involved in recycling, and we're very enthusiastic to identify those recyclers and to develop case studies again so that we can share them with each of the countries and learn from those activities that are already ongoing. So we've recruited those consultants and they'll be starting next week, and we'll be in contact with each of the countries through the BCRC and also through other networks. So if there is an operator in your country that's doing e-waste, that's doing end-of-life vehicle or used oil management, and you see them doing it well, please do let us know, because we'd love to be in contact and learn more from them. Next slide, please. Also under the CCCAM, we're working with global private sector activities. You would have heard in the launch, we're working with both the shipping and the cruise industry, and there was a lot of questions in the launch about this, so I thought I'd take a moment to introduce this concept to you. As James from Swire Shipping mentioned at the launch, 4 years ago in the Pacific, Swire Shipping initiated the Moanataka Partnership together with SPREP and the Samoan government, and they were providing free backhaul on ballast voyages to non-economic recyclable waste. So in the last 4 years, there's been about 32 shipments from Pacific countries to the Pacific Rim areas for recycling. So under Islands, we're hoping to globalize this. So the vision is that we'll facilitate increased recycling rates in SIDS through the provision of in-kind shipping services to recycling markets. So we want to scale the Pacific Focus Moanataka Partnership into a global partnership that includes shipping companies, SIDS governments, SMEs engaged in recycling, and traders to increase recycling rates and just decrease global waste burden. Next slide, please. So the value proposition is that we facilitate public and private sector collaboration through this global partnership. We create and adjust enabling frameworks to address specific barriers, that is, the fluctuating shipping costs. When we consulted during the project design, local recyclers, we heard over and over again that we might be collecting, but we can't get any momentum with this because of the fluctuating cost of shipping. So we're looking to increase these recycling rates and advance the circular economy, and also support the growth of the SIDS recycling industry through direct assistance and capacity building activities to micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. Next slide, please. So the proposed shipping line partner commitments are that the shippers that we onboard will provide free backhaul on main lines to recycling markets. And the proposed SIDS government commitment is they'd sign up to the Global Commitment on Plastics, which includes national actions to increase collection, sorting, reuse and recycling rates, essentially facilitating the necessary infrastructure to promote and catalyze increased recycling. The incentive to join will be global recognition as frontrunners in the shift towards a circular economy for SIDS, visibility of progress made on addressing plastic waste pollution. We will quantify. We're working with a waste tech platform to ensure that everything shipped under this new partnership is quantified and we can show an increase in recycling rates over the years. And essentially, we want concerted action with proven positive impacts in increasing recycling rates in SIDS. So that's shipping. And then we're moving to the cruise sector collaboration. Many of you met Richard from Carnival Cruise, who joined us on the panel for the launch on Tuesday night. And Ludo and colleagues in the Caribbean have been collaborating with Carnival on ideas for work with the cruise sector coalition, the cruise sector over the recent years. In the Caribbean Child Project, there are some activities planned with Carnival. And then on the global level, we're going to be bringing together a coalition of cruise lines to get them to commit to best practices on waste management. The next steps we'll be taking on this is a deep dive desktop study to identify entry points for global collaboration. We were very pleased to hear St. Lucia's intervention on Tuesday night, which asked Carnival directly, was it St. Lucia? It was St. Lucia, which asked Carnival directly, would you consider stopping leaving waste on islands altogether? And these are the questions we want to ask in our study. Is that the right approach, or is the right approach that where there's recycling industries, that there's waste segregated and left there? So we'll be looking over the next year at a deep dive into that industry, and then coming back to you with some plans on how to collaborate with the cruise sector. One other thing that happened when we had Richard and Swire in the same room was a very interesting discussion about how actually there is a link between cargo and cruising, which we hadn't really recognized before. And essentially, these cruise ships are huge customers of the shipping lines. So already Carnival has been in contact with Tropical Shipping in the Caribbean and with CMA, asking them to provide free backhaul on ballast voyages to recycle markets. So without knowing it, we were actually working kind of in parallel, but now we're going to be collaborating on that with the objective of onboarding shipping lines that service the 33 SIDS that we're working in. Next slide, please. So with that, I will just also let you know that it's the CCKM project, so Coordination, Communication and Knowledge Management. So the home of islands knowledge is jeffislands.org. That website is live now in its beta version. We'd be very pleased if you could take a look around and tell us if it's useful. Jovita is reaching out to SIDS colleagues to have bilateral conversations about what do you need, what sort of knowledge, how do you want it packaged? I think we all agree there's no shortage of information in the world, but there is a need for increased curation. So we'll be aiming to improve that and deliver the sorts of things that are useful to SIDS in the second version of that site. At the moment, you'll notice that there's news, there's knowledge, and you can filter it. We're currently working on improving the search function so it kind of has the power that we see on Google and things like that inside our GGKP library, which has over 40,000 resources. We're also going to be developing on jeffislands.org specific regional pages. So the Caribbean, the Pacific, and the Indian Ocean, and eventually at the Atlantic will have specific homes for islands. So you can find the islands knowledge on your region directly, as well as visiting the global page. So in addition to the knowledge management, we also have communities of practice. Many of you have joined the Green Forum already. It's www.thegreenforum.org. Clara will show the slide in a moment. But essentially, these communities of practices are spaces, thematic communities of practice, and spaces where people working on end-of-life vehicles, on e-waste, on used oil, and plastics in SIDS can find each other. So there's individual communities on these 4 areas and also a community on gender. We'll be hoping to increase the functionality of the Green Forum. At the moment, it functions kind of like a social media site. You can share things, comment on things, ask questions, but we're working with our web developer to integrate a functionality that's similar to the app Clubhouse, which has an audio functionality, so we can schedule audio chat rooms. So what we see in the next year is that we'll be able to bring all of our e-waste community together, for example, and say, hey, on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about e-waste and some of the specifics involved and the challenges involved in exporting e-waste, for example, and bringing people together for chats, and hoping we can get around the bandwidth issues by using that audio functionality, which has worked very well on Clubhouse. And the final slide just gives you jeffislands.org is the knowledge management platform, and thegreenforum.org is our communities of practice. So if you're in the room and you haven't joined the Green Forum, please do. because that helps us keep in contact with you. And we want to be in contact because we're going to be working together for the next 5 years. So it would be great to see you all there, signed up to the individual groups that you're most interested in. With that, thank you very much. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Siri, who introduced herself. We're going to trade seats so she can be at the front. Also under the CCCAM, we're working on a youth project, the Tide Turners app, and Siri is going to explain a little bit about that. Oh, yes, Siri.
Thank you so much. No, it's okay.
It's okay.
Thank you so much, Melanie and colleagues. I am going to briefly talk about the Tide Turners Challenge and especially the Tide Turners app that will be launched in the Pacific and Caribbean states within the Islands program. Next slide, please. So just a very quick overview on the Tide Turners Plastic Challenge. It has been developed by the UN Environment Program and of course with the youth themselves, and with also our partner organizations, which are youth organizations such as the Scouts, the Girl Guides, Junior Achievements, WWF in India. And the Tide Turners Plastic Challenge is also part of the UNEP Clean Seas campaign. And within the program, we have developed a curricula. And the aim of this curricula is to educate young people on this topic of marine plastic pollution and also on how they can address it in their communities. Next slide, please. In the curricula, we have 3 different levels, starting from learning about the issues of plastic pollution and its sources, and then also changing your own behavior. And then you go into influencing your communities, your family, and then eventually making even greater impact through engaging with policymakers and businesses and learning about how to advocate for change within your region and within your village and community. Next slide, please. By this date, we launched the program 2019 and piloted that in 5 African countries. And up until now, we have reached almost 500,000 young people in 32 countries. Some of our great achievements, for example, include integrating the Tide Turners Challenge into thousands of eco-schools in India. So it's also part of the school system there. And at the moment, we are, of course, really excited about the launch of the program in the Pacific and Caribbean, and also about the development of the Tide Turners app, which I'm going to talk about next. So the Tide Turners app, the aim of that is to bring the curricula of the different levels that I talked about into a digital format. So with the Tide Turners app, we aim to kind of scale the distribution of the initiative with this app that can host all this educational content in a digital format. And this app will of course host the curricula, and it will be kind of an inspiring and engaging way for young people to take part in this challenge. And what is super important is that this app will be co-created together with the youth organizations, because they will be the ones that have the access to the youth who will be using the app. And of course, we will also consult youth throughout the process that the app is actually engaging for them and that they actually want to use that. The aim is to launch this app in October this year, and then we are going to pilot test that in the Pacific states, I think October this year. So that is very, very briefly on the Tide Turners program and the app that we are developing. And the last slide is just about young people, fun pictures of young people in action within the Tide Turners program. So thank you so much, and back to you, Melanie.
Thank you. Thank you, Siri. It was quite interesting. It's important to know that a lot of so the Tide Turner is being rolled out in the different regions. We already have an UNV in the Pacific that's working with Joshua on this issue. In the Caribbean also, it's ongoing. So it's really exciting to see that we also, on top of doing, the usual waste management and recycling activities that we do in the project, we're also engaging with youth so that, the changes that we want to implement will be more likely to be sustainable. We have a short 10 minutes exchange now about the communication protocols and reporting under islands. How do you want to do that? We open the floor? Or? Yeah. So if there are any questions from the countries or the participants on that particular aspect, the relation between the child projects and the CCKM project, please, anything that's unclear, please ask, and then we'll try to answer these questions. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, not specifically on that, but just one of the aspects of Siri's presentation on the eco schools. Could you expand a bit on that and what it is actually and how what it is exactly, so we can understand a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So in India, basically, they have these environmental clubs as an extracurricular activity almost in every school. So in India, with our partners, we have engaged with these schools, which provide kind of extracurricular activities for young people within the schools, and these schools have taken over the curricula. So they are teaching our Tighteners curricula within these environmental clubs in the schools. So if in your region, in your schools, you have similar environmental clubs for young people, it could be something that we could collaborate in. So very eager to talk more about that if you're interested. Thanks.
Oh, so it's not in the curriculum itself, it's more extracurricular. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other clarifications? Something that's not clear? Again, this is a program, as we have said. We do help with the knowledge management, knowledge generation through the global project, but we also need feedback from the countries. So each of the projects the countries belong to will report to the global project. It will be on the website. So we encourage everyone to look at what we have on the website at the moment. It's just its initial phase. Anything needs you have, please raise a point. So from Belize. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the presentation, and it's a pleasure to be here. Belize is quite pleased with being a part of the Islands Project. We have worked thoroughly with the BCRC, Caribbean Regional Center, and I have to admit that the relationship that we have with them is quite good. At an earlier meeting discussing with the CCKM, discussing particularly the website, we had made a recommendation to include the focal point and contact for each member state, so that, again, the example I used back then was that if, for example, through the website, I realized that the Maldives is doing something that Belize could benefit from, I would want to know exactly who from the Maldives I could contact so that we could exchange information. It was a recommendation I made then. I just want to make the recommendation again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, because it is in our list of things to do as we move into the second version. So we're doing the regional pages, as I mentioned, and then on the regional pages, you'll be able to click on each country, and then the country will have their national focal point on it as well. And then when we share knowledge, we're aiming to have exactly as you mentioned, the contact point for that knowledge as well, so that you can get in direct contact. And really being on jeffislands.org is the start of the story. It's not the end. So it facilitates ongoing collaboration. Thank you again.
Welcome. Yes, please. Yeah, from Guyana.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. A question for Melanie concerning the training. The next set of training, will that be face-to-face or will that be online as well?
So we've done the Caribbean training virtually, and what we would like to do at the next regional meeting that occurs, we would like to conduct some face-to-face training if the opportunity arises also. We really just need to check the situation. But the training that will be done for the first time for the Pacific will be similar to the Caribbean and delivered virtually.
Thanks. I wanted also to clarify that we are very aware that we're speaking English here, and it's not everybody's language. It's not my language. So we will, I mean, in the future meetings, we'll also make sure that we have capacity to help people who would rather communicate in another language. The website is available in the 3 languages or 4. Well, yeah,
Yes.
in 50 languages, but at least you can have information in French, in Spanish, and in Portuguese. So yeah, we're very aware that, and we're taking this very seriously too. And we thank everybody for coping with us in English today. Yes, please, yeah, Agda. Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. As Cape Verde is the part of the Atlantic part, I would like to know, when are we going to get this training? Because I've been in contact with this project very recently, so it's really important for us and to know what has been done in the other countries. And so we would like to know when, if we are going to have this training. Thank you.
You will have this training. And as you know, we've discussed on Monday, so we plan to submit the project in August. As soon as the project is approved, we will organize the inception workshop together with ASO Rohaya, the BCRC from Dakar. And as soon as it's done, then the CCKM team will get in touch with you to organize the training. So this year. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to know about the Marpol agreement. If you are taking about the all kind of residues waste is generated in the chip.
Yeah, we're still in the desktop study phase of looking at the provisions of MARPOL, but we believe that Moanataka partnership is operating in that. But the Moanataka partnership focuses on waste that, well, let's call it recyclables that cannot be recycled economically by paying for the shipping. So we're focusing on waste that can be recycled in recycling markets, but the barrier to doing so is the cost of shipping.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yeah, that's for the partnership, but that's true. But this program is financed from the chemicals and waste focal area in the GEF. So we can deal with the products that are covered by the conventions, the Stockholm Convention, Minamata Convention, and SAICM. So we can deal with residues and waste as long as it's covered by the conventions that the GEF finance under this focal area. Or we associate ourselves with private sector partners that are going the extra mile. So, for example, that's the good example actually is a collaboration with Carnival Cruise in Dominican Republic, where we've discussed also on Tuesday. They are dealing with the plastics, single-use plastics that are technically not covered by the Stockholm Convention because they don't emit UPOPs when burnt. But Carnival is dealing with these plastics. The project will deal with the plastics that are covered, and together with Carnival, we'll deal with all the plastics in Puerto Plata. Yes, please.
In relation to the shipping agencies, how do you guys determine which shipping agency to work with? Is there any criteria as it relates to maybe compliance with regional standards or even national standards before any type of agreement or collaboration is formed?
Shipping agencies
Shipping
or
agencies.
agencies themselves?
Yep. Well,
I think we need to consult further on that, actually, because the idea of the shipping partnership is non-exclusive, meaning it's open to everyone. We're certainly not trying to make any sort of monopoly, but obviously the situation with shipping agencies in each country is different, and I think we're going to need some bilateral consultation with each government to check if there's any specific issues we need to know about. It's really important. Thank you for raising that.
Yeah, the shipping partnership will be quite an interesting activity of the result of the programs. We are, and Swire is really helping us also identifying shipping partners in the other regions. Yep.
Will we discuss implementation as well, or could we discuss that now, or will you present on it?
Implementation of
the project, of the program.
So if you have questions about the global project, that's
But just implementation at the national level, if I may. If I could continue.
Yeah,
Yes.
quickly. I mean, this meeting is about the global, but yeah.
Okay.
We can you can raise your question, and then we'll see if we deal with it through the BCRC Caribbean.
Yeah, it's just in considering maybe phase 2 of the project that consideration is given to assist countries or parties with maybe human resources to kind of manage the implementation of these projects at the national level. Just to paint a picture for you guys, in the Department of Environment in Belize, we are currently managing about 8 or 9 projects. Unfortunately, we only have one person to do that, which is Mr. Sosa, who is sitting over there. Mr. Sosa's table is already full with work, as you could imagine. And so while we welcome and appreciate these projects, I think that moving forward, consideration needs to be given to have maybe like a project coordinator at the national level that will have responsibility to directly implement the deliverables, or at least to ensure that the objectives and goals of these projects are accomplished. It's just something at a national level, and I know that maybe this is not the right forum for it. But just in consideration of moving forward with the next phase, maybe that is something that you guys could consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Jules, you want to? Yeah. You need to use the mic because the people are online. Sorry.
Sure. To answer the question, Mr. Mai, so we recognize this after the GEF 5558 project. And what we've done is that when we look at the individual components and activities under the islands project for you in the Caribbean, we have identified ways of assisting with a national project coordinator, but not throughout the entirety of the project. So only for the components or the activities that we can afford to, we can allow it, because it's really difficult, and Mr. Sukde will explain that to have that amount of project management costs throughout the project. But we did recognize it, and that was the way that we treated with it going forward. So for the island project for the Caribbean, you will see that there's certain activities that will allow for that national project coordinator role. But it's not, and I know you're going to ask me the sustainability of it, but at least we'll start to build the capacity in your country with a view that other maybe through national funding or through other projects, you can then continue or have some sustainability with that individual that we're investing in. So that's my short answer, yes.
Yes, yes, yeah. Thank you. We'll take this absolutely. And I know a lot of you are very overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just make a point. So, we do fund project management costs out of projects, but it comes out of the project budget, right? It's not additional resources. So when countries want, and with projects of this nature that are regional and any actual project, you can request you can go beyond the 5%. That's the expectation for project management costs of projects, with a justified reason. But just so that you understand that comes out of the project budget. It's not additional to the project. So if it's 10%, then that's 5% less for activities, with 5% going to staff. So that's just a clarification.
Sure, and if I may, that is very important, because in Belize, what we want to do, and we've conveyed this to the BCRCs, we really want projects that have a tangible output. And so we want something on the ground that will have meaningful impact, rather than reports, assessment, etc., etc. Those are important, but more importantly, we'd want majority of the funds to have greater impact, and by doing that, we will need physical, tangible assets on the ground. So it is important to kind of manage all the funds that are available to us. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And then we'd have to close soon, but yeah.
Thank you. It's just that in Cape Verde we have the same question issue, is that we have several GEF projects going on, and we have one operational focal point that happens to be me. That is, I'm the national director, and I have the implementation agency always pressing on my human resources to respond, and that's an issue, because we want to implement very well the projects, but we have limited human resources, and I'm overwhelmed with all the pressure I have from the GEF projects, because they are really great projects with a lot of activities, but I have to respond to on a country level. So if we could have some support, and I have been attending some GEF meetings online, and this is an issue where this operational focal point needs help, really. Help, please.
Okay, in terms of, I'm going back to the cruise lines. In terms of the cruise lines and importation of waste, specifically plastics, I'm wondering that, well, I know St. Lucia for a fact, we have legislation with respect to prohibition of those single-use plastics. And we have actually backdated the implementation date because of certain issues raised by the commerce, the importers of meats and so on. And I'm thinking that if similar islands have the same issue as St. Lucia in terms of the plastics coming out from the cruise lines, what we can do, since the legislation is already there for prohibition of plastics, what we may have to do is to speak with the border agencies, or so that we can send communicate with the cruise lines to make them aware that these items are prohibited. So if it is prohibited, they need to keep it on board. They should not discharge it. So I was just sitting here and I'm thinking about it from the border control point of view, and I'm saying that this is one way that we could lessen the our issues in terms of plastics coming out from the cruise lines. Yeah.
Thanks, PS. That's a really wonderful point, and it would be very great if we could be in contact afterwards to have a copy of that legislation to share it with others. And I did question Richard from Carnival at the drinks, actually. I took the opportunity to get him a beer and then ask him. Just followed up on St. Lucia's question from the floor. If a country says, we don't want any of your waste. Are you okay with that? And he said, absolutely, but we need to hear it from the countries. So I think he's signaled a real willingness, and that's something that we can coordinate and work on there if it is indeed what all countries are looking to moving towards. So yeah, absolutely.
And I just have a comment on just because, we talked about cruise ship waste going from one country to the other. And it would require, I think, some collaboration among countries, because if one says no, the other one might say yes. And so there's some disincentives for doing that. Obviously, they might choose to go somewhere else. So it might be probably worth exploring through the implementation of this project, that you look at ways that, one component of the project is actually looking at where they could actually land their waste, or take it back, right? Ideally, it should be a zero waste proposition, I think. Because I think it's a bit much to ask small islands to take on one cruise ship in Nevis, for example, is way too much waste. So it's probably it's a conversation that needs to happen, and hopefully this implementation of this program will help those conversations start. That it's something that at least in the Caribbean side, but also the other regions where the cruise ship industry is quite an economic earner for your countries. It's something you also want to look at in terms of balancing the cost of having them enter your territories and the benefits that they could get. So it would probably be looking at more kind of saying everyone has to say no or everyone has to say yes. It can't be some say yes, some say no. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. And there's no incentive then for the industry to change their practices. So if we want to, and that's kind of one of the reasons why it's such a powerful thing to have 33 SIDS together working on one program. So you have, if we can figure out a way to speak with one voice, then you have a larger ability to move the types of materials and for the most part prevent some of the materials coming into your territories. Because if you all say no, then it's no, and then the industry has to change. And so I think that's how we start making some changes in the industries that are polluting in your territories. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Linroy, we have to move on to the next part after, but yeah.
Sorry, but on the waste issue though, the World Bank would have funded the OECS to develop those solid waste management acts, and they all make it an incentive to actually dispose of ship-generated waste on the countries. It's in most of the legislations where the fee is significantly higher than disposal of any other waste. So there is a CARICOM level of engagement that has to happen, because that was just with the OECS countries, not with the entire Caribbean. So there is that issue. The single-use plastics, we did that in 2017, but that is only on the import side through an amendment of one specific legislation. So we all implemented that in a slightly different manner. So, and I think also on the knowledge management side, you have to engage the cruise industry completely separately, because they will go to the point of easiest, of least resistance when it comes to this issue of waste disposal. But the other question I had to ask is really on the business incubator side. You had mentioned, promoting what is best practice. I don't know if we're going to or that's just on the national side where we actually look at what businesses and how we're going to do the business incubation. Do we discuss that right now, or that's more on the national side?
I think we're going to hear about that in the next session as we move on to the regions.
Okay. Well, I'll just leave it till then.
Perfect. We won't forget it, don't worry.
And the Caribbean region has the chance to have the Blue Tech Challenge from IDB too. So yeah. Yes, last question from St. Lucia. St. Lucia, sorry.
Okay. I would concur with what Mr. Christian has said there. But in addition, we need to be mindful that most Caribbean countries have signed on to the MAPOL Convention, which I believe makes it mandatory to accept ship waste, providing you have the capacity to manage it in an environmentally sound manner. So we need to be mindful of the provisions of the MAPOL Convention. Notwithstanding that, we need to look at the islands again capacity, which would be related to disposal capacity in terms of landfills, or if you manage it in a different manner. but that has to be taken into consideration. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good
Yeah.
point. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thanks for the active participation. I think we can move to the next part of the agenda. So we will hear from the regional projects, the progress. So the first one on the agenda is the Caribbean projects, the 3 projects in the Caribbean. So Rachel, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ludo. Good afternoon again. All right, so as mentioned, we will touch briefly on where we are. If we can jump to the next slide, please. Thank you. With the projects that we are involved in terms of our role as the executing agency. And so you'd see on the slides here that we are executing the GEF Islands 10279 project, 10472 projects. These 2 are implemented by the UNEP and then the FAO. The 10258 project is the project that's involved with implementation by the IDB, and the BCRC Caribbean is executing partially. And then, of course, as with all the projects in the program, we'll be providing support with the CCKM, which is the 10266 project. And what we will do also is touch briefly on 2 of the significant activities that's happened since for the region. One is the private sector technology fair, and the other is where we will talk about the IDB Blue Tech Challenge briefly. So on the next slide, we just visually outlined the project countries that we're working with. Overall, we are executing on behalf of 12 countries in the Caribbean region. On this slide, so the 10279 project is a larger project with 9 Caribbean countries. And so we touch here in terms of the administrative milestones. The project was approved in June 2021. The executing arrangements with the UNEP via PCA was finalized in July 2021. And of course, the FAO is partially involved in the implementation of that project, and we're still finalizing the terms of the agreement with the FAO. We would have, however, proceeded with several administrative steps to ensure a smooth execution process in terms of initiating what we needed to administratively. So we would have met with the project countries in August 2021 to talk about the executing arrangements, the expectations as it relates to the national responsibilities and support that would be required, and then the BCRC roles and responsibilities. And then our project countries, they would have proceeded with the formulation of their national working groups, which is sort of a national mechanism that's in place with the different key stakeholders who can support us with the execution of the project over the 5-year period. We then had an inception meeting for this project in October 2021. And then further to that, we'll touch on the second child project. And upon the approval of that project, what we sought to do was rework the work plan so that the first 9 countries and the second 3 countries, second batch, all 12, can work together on activities. As we recognize, of course, there are quite a bunch of commonalities across the activities. And so it made sense to move forward in a synergized manner. So we would have met in February 2022 to present the proposed approach to synergies. And we have since received the endorsement from the first 9 project countries here in April 2022. In terms of the second project, which involves the second bunch of countries, the Bahamas, Cuba, and Dominica, we have the project approval happened in November 2021. We would have also met with these countries in terms of the executing arrangements, started the formulation of their working groups. The agreement with UNEP for implementation was sorted, and we did the regional inception. For this project, however, we presented the synergies, the work plan, and budget and whatnot was endorsed, but we are still in the process of finalizing some administrative arrangements in order to move forward with the work plan. that reflects the synergies. There are a few activities that we've managed to advance, however, despite the administrative challenges thus far. And here we've outlined these. So we would have started up with activity 141 that deals with the development of regional labeling standards. And we're working on this with a regional standards body for the Caribbean under the CARICOM Secretariat. And here we would have engaged them and begin the preliminary discussions in February. And we've made good progress since in that we have since advanced the administrative arrangement that has to happen between the BCRC Caribbean and CrossQ. That is the name of the organization. And last night we would have actually met with several of the directors of the bureaus of standards involved in the projects in order for CrossQ to present to them the work program. And when that is endorsed on their end, then we will meet with our project constituents in order to advance that activity. As Melanie mentioned, under the CCKM project, we made some good progress there in that there were several training activities that were held with the countries of our region, the stakeholder engagement, in March 2022, and then the gender mainstreaming in April 2022. Then we hosted the private sector technology fair, and we'll talk about that in the following slides. We've also managed to successfully start up the implementation of the Titaners Challenge in the Caribbean. So last week, Tuesday, we had the inception meeting where the first 6 project countries would have met the consultant that would be involved in that activity. We've started up working with the Dominican Republic on the plastic waste management activity that will involve the collaboration with Carnival Cruise Line. And then we're hoping to advance this activity later this month with the Bahamas also. Right, on the next slide. Thank you. So as noted, we have a few administrative arrangements to sort out regarding the synergies, and we're really hoping to have that ventilated this month. And then in terms of the plan moving forward, we're hoping to start up with reissuing the legal consultancy under component 1 of the projects. And then there are several other project activities in accordance with the synergized work plan that we are aiming to issue between July and September. What we are also hoping to do, and this is a heads up to our Caribbean counterparts, is have our first steering committee meeting in October. And here we'd sort of rework the work plan and budget moving forward with you, get your endorsement, and then move forward with execution for the next year also. Right? In this slide, we just briefly touch on the Caribbean Incubator Facility that's been implemented by the IDB. The BCRC Caribbean is, however, involved in the execution of 3 of the components under this project, the ones that deal with financing policy and regulatory processes that will enable safe management of hazardous chemicals and waste in your countries. And then we're looking at improving the bankability of the public sector, where we've been meeting with the project countries thus far in collaboration with the IDB to sort of prioritize projects that are in the pipeline that need this sort of investment, where we work with you to unlock the resources in collaboration with the IDB. And then, of course, we'd be supporting with the IDB here with designing basically the knowledge management and reporting. The IDB lab, however, will be executing the projects under the private sector, medium-sized projects. And then the IDB Invest will be looking at large private sector investments for them. Right? In terms of highlighting some of the key achievements, we would have hosted on April the 28th, the Private Sector Technology Fair in collaboration with our implementing agencies also. And so what we tried to do here, the main objectives really was to start that conversation with private sector get them engaged in terms of what the project activities have to offer, or also highlight the areas in which they can get involved to provide support under their corporate social responsibility portfolios. It was also a really good learning experience for us in the Caribbean in terms of uncovering, a lot of the technologies that exist and a lot of the operations that exist. And we were also able to capture there, where there might be room for regional collaboration and then even wider international room for collaboration via the program model. And the next slide, we just highlighted here a few of the key speakers that we would have had at the private sector technology fair. And you would see the cross-section of speakers that we have. We had private sector operators. We had persons involved in public-private partnerships. So they were there to present on how that model can work in the context of a small island developing state. We had the tourism industry, we had the cruise ship industry, and then we also heard from Melanie and her team, where they would have presented a bit about the CCKM project and how the private sector can work there. And then the IDB spoke a bit about the Blue Tech Challenge that they were involved in, and we'll talk about that next. So yeah, we were just showing, we had a successful event, and a few of the key discussion points here included the need to target communication to the general public in order to address the knowledge gaps that we have in the region. The development and advancement of the circular economy, of course, will definitely involve close collaboration with the private sector. We looked at the needs for capacity building. The implementation of alternative technologies came through. And then, of course, the need for best practices to be implemented across the board came through. And the next slide, to briefly touch on the Blue Tech Challenge that was issued. It was opened shortly before the private sector technology fair, and it closed on May the 31st, actually. But in essence, and so this was, of course, led by the IDB Lab, and the overall objective of their challenge was to unlock these resources, financial resources, in order to accelerate sustainable management of chemicals and waste. And one of the key things that they wanted to come through is that they were looking for innovative technologies. And so the priority waste streams that this particular challenge is open to is listed on the screen, but they basically align with the program objectives under the Stockholm and Minamata Convention, and of course, considering the SICOM synergies. So on the next slide, you'd see that the challenge is open to 12 countries of the region, including Haiti and Jamaica, who are not directly involved in the execution of the islands projects, but the challenge is also open to them. And the types of entities that were targeted here would have been startups, SMEs, NGOs, and of course the list goes on and on there. And so, as mentioned, the challenge was announced in July and it closed to the end of May. And we were just discussing that the next steps would be that we would hear from the IDB in the coming weeks in terms of the level of response and how that went with the number of submissions and the types of entities and the sectors that came in. And so that is it in a nutshell and briefly for where we are in the region thus far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I think for this project, the private sector fair was really a success and proved, to prove that there are solutions in the regions that we can implement in different countries. We just need to communicate between these problems and solutions so that we can replicate them. And the Blue Tech Challenge will help us also accelerate that. The next on the agenda, is it's online. Actually, it's our colleagues from UNDP to give an update of of the UNDP project in the Indian Ocean with Maldives, Comoros, and Seychelles. Yeah,
And Mauritius.
and Mauritius. Sorry. So, Charlotte, you there?
Excellent. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yes, it works very well. Thanks.
Okay, great. And I
Okay,
see
great.
that you can see
I
me
see
as
that
well.
you see
I
me as
just hear
well. I
myself.
just hear
Can you
myself.
still hear me like this as
Can you
well?
still hear me like this as well?
Okay, great.
Okay, great.
Good
Good
afternoon, everyone.
afternoon.
Thank you for inviting us here. I'm happy to participate, be it virtually. Good afternoon, distinguished panelists and SEEDS representatives in the room. I'm the regional technical specialist of UNDP Chemicals and Waste Team. I'm based in Istanbul Regional Hub, UNDP Regional Hub, and engaged for the regional oversight of the Islands Indian Ocean project. This project is in its initial phase, so it is about to start, and it will be implemented by our government partners in, as you already mentioned, Mauritius, Seychelles, Comoros, and Maldives. The regional oversight will be supported by the presence of UNDP country offices in those participating seats. The project also includes a regional component that is led by UNDP. For the purpose of this working meeting, I was kindly asked to highlight for you today 3 innovative activities that will take place over the coming year in the framework of the Indian Ocean component. So I'll dive right into it. During the first year of the Islands project in Indian Ocean, our implementing partners will initiate solid waste management planning with a focus on minimizing hazardous waste streams, in particular persistent organic pollutants and mercury. Such planning and data gathering will actually also inform the UNDP Zero Waste offer that was recently formulated and will be rolled out globally. To make seeds better equipped in dealing with the many challenges of solid and hazardous waste, this island project will scrutinize, on the one hand, the source of those waste streams, as well as the capacity for treatment and destruction of that waste in the countries. So, to better uncover the sources of hazardous waste generation, the project will develop national hazardous waste inventories and databases in all seeds. In Comoros, for example, this includes a detailed PCB inventory and analysis and a stocktaking of obsolete pesticides. In Mauritius, a comprehensive supply chain analysis for single use plastics will be carried out. The project will also look at the capacity assessments for hazardous waste treatment facilities in the countries. For example, Mauritius and Comoros will assess the feasibility of a centralized treatment facility for healthcare waste, and Comoros will develop a strategy for the upkeep and maintenance of the equipment to treat biomedical waste. That is on the hazardous waste side. Now, second, among the project's early activities will also be the assessment and establishment of regional private sector partnerships for the recycling or treatment and disposal of hazardous waste. This includes partnerships with the transport sector, hence shipping companies, which we discussed already a lot about also during the launch and today, but also with the tourism sector, such as cruise lines that operate in the Indian Ocean and hotel chains in the Maldives, Mauritius, and Seychelles. As we heard 2 days ago during the launch event, the various concerns regarding waste coming from cruise business, solid waste, but also wastewater, it seems like this should be an urgent subject of engagement with the private sector. This will specifically be supported by the regional components of the project in Indian Ocean that will be implemented by UNDP and will involve the industry association Business Mauritius as a responsible party. Also, all seeds will exchange lessons learned and best practices on greening their hotels and completing the green label certification process. Now, lastly, I would like to highlight that the project in its first year aims to build the capacity of and exchange experiences between customs officials and enforcement officers regarding the identification safe handling and management of banned chemicals and products, and also deliver training on the existing obligations under national and multilateral agreements. This will allow us to get a better view on hazardous waste and chemicals importation in seeds. The project will, for example, actively monitor the quantities and types of pesticides that are currently imported in Comoros. During this year, we'll also engage with the World's Customers Organization, including its regional training center, to plan the regional capacity building program in this sector specifically. The project will also work with OECD in this regard, whose expertise on this subject is quite extensive. So that's a little bit the say update from our side. As the project still needs to start implementation, I would just wanted to highlight that these are the three overall activities that the project will be focusing on in the participating seats. Thank you.
Then we will listen from SPREP and the execution of the project in the Pacific.
Thank you, Ludo, and good afternoon again, everyone. So we also had the GEF Islands Pacific Child Program approved in 2021. And just like our colleagues from the Caribbean, we've onboarded a number of our project management team. But while in the process of onboarding them, we've also been running activities in parallel. And for the purpose of this meeting, I've been asked to share two activities just to share our experience for your learning, and then when time comes for you to implement some of your activities, this could be useful to you. Next slide, please. So the islands Pacific, we have 14 countries. The unique thing about islands was before the project was finalized, we went to the countries to agree on their priorities. So that kind of helped speed up things. And so you will see on the board the priorities of the 14 countries. Obviously, they needed to have priorities that were aligned with GEF rules around funding activities under conventions. And so most of them are doing a whole heap of things, from legislative frameworks for hazardous waste as well as chemical management. Some of them are doing hands-on projects that will have tangible infrastructure, like drop-off recycling stations. In I think 1 or 2 countries, we are climate-proofing the disposal facilities. And obviously, our region being made up of many atoll nations, we are also engaging in a design study for landfill facilities that are specific for atoll environments. So those are our priorities. We have the 14 national projects, and then we also have 5 regional projects. The regional projects will benefit all the 14 participating countries, and I've been asked to talk on one of them, and then one national project. So the first regional project, next slide please, is the end-of-life vehicle and / bulky waste recycling. So just like all of you in the Pacific, we are import-based economy, so a lot of materials that we import, including vehicles. And you will know a lot of these vehicles are reconditioned, repurposed vehicles from neighboring economies, and within a few months of owning and driving them around, they end up not being usable anymore. So if you go to the Pacific today, we've got significant amounts of end-of-life vehicles in the environment. So one of the regional projects is looking at a regional recycling facility to handle all of this. And so the first activity of the island-specific project was to do a scoping study. And we did this scoping study together with our biggest partner, which is Swire Shipping. Swire Shipping is a large co-financier of the island-specific project. So we undertook this study on their behalf so they could take this study and present a business case to their management. And so we've completed the study. So basically the study, we wanted to have a look at the viability, economic as well as logistical viability of having a regional bulky waste recycling program, so we can build up the numbers, build up the economies of scale, and make it something that is viable for a business like Swire Shipping. And so that has been concluded. We started towards the end of last year. The study was done during COVID, so it was very difficult to undertake the study, given the lack of data from customs agencies in the region. A lot of assumptions have been made to complete the study, but pleased to report that it's been completed. As part of the study, we asked them to come up with a few options. So the consultant has come up with around 4 options. The team at SPREP, together with UNEP and Swire Shipping, we've settled on one option. So the next phase of the activity is now to undertake a more detailed economic study on the most preferable option that has been recommended by the consultant, and then that will then provide Swire Shipping a business case. So our main focal points with Swire Shipping, the MD as well as Simon, they will put together a business case. And so fingers crossed, they get the approval from management, and we will have a regional recycling facility in the Pacific. So the idea is they will set it up in a central, one of our central countries, which is Fiji. Fiji is also a regional hub for us. And so once the facility is set up in Fiji, those who are close to Fiji, they ship the end-of-life vehicles as well as other bulky waste to Fiji. They get amalgamated there, and then from Fiji, they get shipped to, in particular, the Asian markets that are around the Pacific Rim. So that's the first regional activity that's now underway. Once the study is finalized, we are happy to share it with you all, with fellow seeds participating in islands, and do feel free to have a look at the study and then pick out lessons for your purposes. Second one is a national project. Next slide, please. This is for DDT, and this you can see is the Stockholm Convention NIP in action. So one of our participating countries, Papua New Guinea, which I'm also from, they did their NIP update some time back, but there was no opportunity for them to implement the NIP. And so when the islands opportunity became available, and when we consulted them, immediately they said, we've got a large stockpile of POPs, DDT and PCBs, and then we'd like to use this opportunity to get rid of them in the country. So I am not too sure about the Caribbean, but for us, we had a PPG, which was the project preparation grant.